Hey, sick chicks and sick dudes. Welcome back to the Sick Chick Hour. I'm Jen, your chronically real hostess. And today we're diving into something super close to my heart, cystic fibrosis care, particularly how low-income families are navigating it here in the US and around the world. Hey, sick chicks. You're watching the Sick Chick Hour on YouTube. Our guest today is someone doing incredible work to help level the playing field. Let me introduce you to Mark Tremblay. Mark was diagnosed with cystic fibrosis at 18 months, and he is now 56 years old. A quick personal note, I love meeting fellow CFers who are beating the projected odds. The gene responsible for CF was only identified in 1989. That means Mark was already about 21 years old. At the time, those with CF lived nearly 30 years if they were very lucky. Mark is also the founder and president of CF Vests for Life, which began in August of 2022. His foundation helps provide airway clearance vests to CFers in need around the world. For those who don't know, these airway clearance vests are an essential part of CF care. They shake, they pulse, and they vibrate to help us expel the toxic trapped mucus and bugs out of our lungs. Additionally, Mark has been working in Medicaid public health, finance, and policy at the New York Governor's Division of Budget in that Department of Health, focusing on areas like mental health, long-term care, homeless housing, and child health. He's also been writing and publishing articles and blogs on CF since 1994. Without further ado, and especially for those who are also sick of hearing my voice, welcome, Mark. I'm so glad you're here. Let's start by getting to know you beyond all of these impressive credentials. So, Mark, can you tell us about your journey with CF?
Yeah. And thank you, Jen. And this seems like a really cool project you're working on.
Thanks.
I was diagnosed with cystic fibrosis at 18 months, and at the time when I was diagnosed, I lived in California, and the prognosis, the average, I've spent my life doing statistics, so the median life expectancy for cystic fibrosis was 9.5. So when my mother was told, this sick child you have who's been failing to thrive and all this stuff, that he has cystic fibrosis and was given the history on it, they sent her up to Stanford University, where she was told like all that was involved. And she was told you would be doing percussive treatment, 3 sessions a day, using wedges and different angles, and that, it all comes down to your son is going to have to cough up everything that's building up in his lungs every day, and you can never miss it. Yeah. And then the other thing that was very popular back then, popular sounds cool, but it wasn't really cool. It was mist tents. Mist tents were huge back then. So it was thought that by putting CF children in mist tents, that they would be able to, the humidity, they didn't understand the organic chem behind it. So the humidity would allow us to cough easier. What they didn't realize at the time is that it also enabled the proliferation of pathogens and bacteria. So what they said to do was to, put your children in these mist tents so they stay, so they slept in them, which is kind of an odd thing when I think about it now. And so I spent 12 hours a day in my mist tent. And then the other thing, because my dad had some awareness of, he was an engineer, so he had some awareness of like chemistry and stuff. He's like, well, you're going to have to clean everything and keep, this child away from people who carry pathogens. Right. So there was this whole weird thing they did where they developed a clean room. They tried to keep me isolated from other human beings. I had this weird thing where I would watch my brothers through this glass in the kitchen. So they would be playing on like this table over here, and I would be eating and everything kind of over here.
Did you know anyone else with CF while growing up?
I knew one other CF patient that lived like in my town. And we did everything together, her and I. She was 12, I was 11, she was wicked sick. And I wasn't nearly as sick as her. So she died very young, and it really impacted me growing up. She died like a year later.
So
and
sorry.
so it was just watching all that, right? Like that was wicked hard for me to watch. Knowing that, on some subconscious level, like that's my future, right? I went to her funeral, and afterwards there were older kids around and stuff. And so they offered me a beer. And, I didn't get sober again until I was 18. And so I kind of got lost.
CF is such an isolating disease. I think I also grew up in California.
Okay.
And I was the only CF person like in the town. A new family moved in, and my friend, she also had CF. And we had separate class schedules, separate lunch times, like we were completely separated. But somehow we found each other, and we were like literally separated by a fence, barbed wire fence. And like I wrote about this for my college essay because it was such an impactful thing, because we were literally separated by something material this time. And we talked, and we were like, "You're pale. I'm pale. You're coughing a lot." And everyone stares at us when we cough, and they're like, think we're like plague victims. Like I would be in the grocery store and I would cough. People's heads would turn around. Their necks would almost snap so fast. And then it was always like a disgusting look. But I was like, you know what? I'm helping myself. I don't care. But back to my friend, she had a G-tube, and I was in the process of getting a G-tube, and she would lift her shirt up and be like, "This is how this works." And there'd be like stomach acid spilling out. But she'd be like, "It's okay. You just get a gauze. Go to the nurse and get a gauze." But that's how like I learned about, because every CF person is different. Everyone has their own trajectory, and what mutations you have heavily influenced your environment, and like influences it. And she's doing good. I'm happy to say our moms are still great friends, but she's never had a transplant, and I've had two. And I do have like I have to admit, I can be very angry at sometimes, because I'm like, how are we this different? We have the same disease, and how is it a little easier for you? Or I get even worse, like, then I also get angry. Why is it worse for you than it was for me? Like, so I think we all have some anger in us, and when we use the anger to care more about someone else instead of focusing on ourselves, you start to sympathize more, and you get out of your head.
Right. Yeah.
Right? And there's also the survivor's guilt, because you experienced it with your friend when you were very young, and that is terrible. And everyone experiences survivor's guilt in some capacity, but it's so prevalent, especially with CF, because I used to be in a CF group chat. There was 35 of us, and now there's 5 over the past 5 years. And I can't even look at that without having like a breakdown, because it's so frustrating. But we have to celebrate those people. We have to remember them, keep their memory alive. Survivor's guilt can also be good and bad, I think.
Here I am, like just turned 18. My body couldn't take it anymore, even though I was like on withdrawal drugs and everything. So I passed out. And when I came to, I was on a gurney, and I was kind of like going into the ambulance, and I was a little disoriented because one of my lungs collapsed, which is apparently why I passed out. So
that would do it.
So it was disorienting, like extremely disorienting. And I was in a lot of physical pain. Whatever emergency stuff they did to keep me alive, I'm in the gurney, and the ambulance, one of the ambulance staff or whatever, looks down at me. And without knowing me from Adam, he just says, "Jesus loves you." And I was like, I can't explain how this hit me. There was nothing in my life where I had experienced love. There were no points. Like, I was isolated as a child. Then I was around these kids who were just
bad influences.
Every one of them went to state prison. Like, faith is something in which we believe something that we don't have proof exists, so that we can have faith and we can have hope. Like, there's like this circular argument, there's circular logic to it, right? Like, having faith gives us more hope, and having more hope strengthens our faith, right?
Do you have a favorite metaphor to describe CF? I have a few of my own.
This is the way it was described to me, and I think it's very spot on. CF is a series of steps to the basement. So once you're like young, maybe you have 105 lung function until you're about 8, 9 years old,
Yeah.
and life just seems normal. Occasionally you cough if you're to exert yourself too much, but then you go to the next stage, and maybe it's like your lungs feel irritated all the time, right? Maybe you're 80%. Now maybe it is a little more difficult because, no matter how many times you take your puffer, you now have less energy.
It's
And then you go through
progressive disease.
Yeah, but it's more like steps, because the way it works is you don't, like, sometimes you fall off and it's like a cliff, and that's horrible. But most of the time you just constantly keep adapting to a new normal.
Yeah, exactly, because you constantly getting different infections, things you pick up from the environment, things you can't control. My friends used to play video games, and every time you would get hurt, you would like lose half a power, lose half a life, and that's how I kind of view it. Every time you get hit with something, you take a few steps back and you get worse, and you hope that this clears up, it goes away, you can go back up. But that's just not how CF works, and that's why as you get older, and that's why kids unfortunately don't make it that far, is because you get hit and you get hit and you get hit, and the body can't take that much, especially functioning with terrible lung function, poor nutrition, there's diabetes, there's all these comorbidities about CF, and that's what makes it so frustrating.
Right.
Yeah,
exactly.
But I like your analogy. Tell me about your college experience and also your insane career trajectory.
I graduated from a wonderful college. I had some incredible experiences, got into the governor's office. But in this day and age, with the level of energy I have, I could not have done those things.
Right.
I just did not have the capacity to work that many hours, right? Well, when I was 28, and for those of you that don't know what a superinfection is, there's a certain type of infection that a CF patient sometimes gets. Mortality rates are very high. It's terrifying. And so what I feel like happened is I miraculously got out of it with lung function. I applied to the Maxwell School of Citizenship and Public Policy, which is the #1 MPA program in the country. So this is the program where there's so many of the people in federal government throughout the, Donna Shalala, like Sean O'Keefe, who was the director of NASA. And I got to go there and I got to teach and study.
Wow.
So I taught there. I taught economics and health policy. One of the interviews I did was in the White House. I actually interviewed for a public management intern for a Child Health Plus program, which was going to is now a huge program. But I interviewed, with the Clinton administration to kind of be involved in that. So this was big, but as I sorted things between CF and the pace of life in Washington, it's just incredible. There's no unhealthy people down here. I can't do this kind of this is way beyond me. So I got a job offer in the governor's office, New York State governor's office, executive budget. And that was the perfect fit. I was doing incredible government work, and I was this CF kid who was basically the word for a CF child or a CF patient is called super utilizer, because you use enormous amounts of healthcare. And as a super utilizer, there's probably been very few instances, that I was aware of, and even to this day, where a super utilizer, someone who had, CF and was very expensive and had all these inpatient visits, was in a room, not because they have CF,
because
they had something to contribute to public policy. So I felt like I was walking on air for 6 years when I had this job. I mean, it was, and to make it even more so I was in the governor's office when 9/11 occurred. When we had to open up 40,000 mental health clinics, I was in charge of the Project Liberty program in New York City to treat all of these kids. How is it that a kid who wasn't even supposed to live to be 9.5 years old is flying into a helicopter to help literally millions of people?
how were you maintaining your health? Like, were you doing vests? Were you doing like
Okay,
nebulizers?
so this is where, because I was doing stuff from the hospital. I had a government issued laptop with like the governor's seal on it that I would take to the hospital with me. I contributed. I made a difference. I feel like I made a difference. I feel
Absolutely.
like my being there added value. But yeah, I was sick.
I feel like if
Of
there's
course it was
anyone
sick.
to do a
Exactly.
job, yeah, if there should be anyone to do a job for taking care of sick people or healthcare, it should be someone who literally
I
lives it
know.
and understands it. That's
And
so,
sometimes I would say that, like when we'd be in these big meetings with these
yeah,
huge people making like millions of dollars, I would tell them, I
you
literally tell them, I'd be
lived
like,
it, you've experienced it.
let me tell you what happened last week when they came in to do my IV in the home. They screwed it up. I had to rush to the emergency. And I was like, that's the problem with a lot of the problem with healthcare for super utilizers
Mm,
is they fail at the basic stuff. And I was able to actually make changes because I, without even making people empathize with me, like
mhm,
I was able to inform, in kind of an intellectual way. I spent a good part of my career trying to
mhm.
improve basic care. And it was
That's
basically
amazing.
because I was a super utilizer that got
Mhm,
to be in a cubicle in front of a machine with a database in front of me, you know, thinking like a super utilizer.
yeah.
And it was, I feel like until I retired 2 years ago,
Mhm,
maybe not the last few years because I was really struggling. I was falling asleep. I have been officially 100% disabled for almost 12 years now. 10 of it was while working.
mhm.
And so it did become more challenging. I started to make math mistakes at the end. I had trouble staying awake.
Right.
I just didn't have it. I didn't have and then I just eventually retired.
Were
And now I
you
do what I do, which,
always, mm,
yeah,
sorry, were you
no,
always
go.
upfront with your employers, like, hey, I have CF, this is the deal? Or did you kind of, because I know
I
there's
would
so
have
much
never gotten into the
prejudice.
governor's office.
Exactly. There's so
Yeah.
much prejudice with people with illnesses because they don't want to, deal with all of that. So did you like tell them later or would you be upfront?
Well, first of all, it's not against the law to not tell people, right? In fact,
True.
the law is on our side,
It
right?
is.
So I would not have got into my graduate school if I said that.
Mhm.
Absolutely, 100%. I would not have gotten to the governor's office.
Okay. So I have some questions about CF care in the US and how it compares globally for you. Are you up for it?
Yeah. Okay. Yep.
Okay.
I know so much. That's the thing. I have to really think about how I'm going
Hmm.
to say this to people because people don't even realize how bad it is. Okay,
Yes.
go.
Okay. Use your government skills. Give me like the best soundbite you can summarize it for. Okay.
I am incredibly hopeful that we can significantly improve basic care in the world. By improving basic care and improving access to basic care, supporting clinics, I believe we can increase life expectancy in lower income countries by 10 years. In Mexico, they're one of the only countries, middling countries, that has very rigorous infection control protocols. Like they don't let more than one patient stay in a waiting room. They don't let more than one patient stay in the hospital. Everyone wears masks. There's very rigorous protocols. Okay, so they have access to certain rudimentary basic healthcare things. Now, if you just go just a small across the continent to Ecuador, very similar. They have very similar resources. They don't have enzymes, which I think is a big factor, which we're trying to solve.
Malnutrition.
But
Yeah.
they don't do any infection control. Average life expectancy in Ecuador is 9.5. Average life expectancy in Mexico City, where it's rough, is 22. The only
That's a
difference
shame.
other than enzymes is one does rigorous infection controls. One of the cheapest thing in the world we could do, the
I'm
cheapest
honestly speechless.
things we could do is to get rigorous infection protocols to be adopted, even in the most poor clinics in the world. You could increase their life expectancy by 5 years. What I can do is spend the rest of the years of my life trying to improve basic care.
Mm-hmm.
Prior to Trikafta, some of the biggest bumps in median life expectancy have been the result of things like hypertonic saline.
Yep.
I can get hypertonic saline to other countries for $40 a month. I figured out, listen to this. So I did an analysis. For $8 million, I could get basic care to the entire continent of South America.
Yeah.
We get to be down there. We get to be down there hugging these doctors and staying away from the kids, but being so inspired by these kids. And just, I could not dream of this life. It's a great life. It's a great
Your entire life has prepared you to do this job. And it's not just a job, it's a passion. It's like a purpose. And that's incredible to hear. But what are the goals for CFS for Life in the next 5 years? What are you most excited about to accomplish?
I want to raise $8 million.
Yeah.
I do want to solve the problem in South America. It's very doable.
Yeah.
I feel like we have great connections there. I feel like that would be a huge accomplishment, because if we could do that, help all of South America.
That would be an amazing accomplishment. No, well, how can people help that are listening to this? How can they help you accomplish this?
Well, there's kind of three main ways. I'm going to say the first, because this is my deepest belief. Pray for us. Pray for our children. Pray for our doctors. Pray for our clinicians. Prayer is so much more powerful than anything this world can do for these people. If you bring people physical hope first, then you can start working on their personal hope, because a lot of the people we deal with, when we first meet them, they are burnt. They don't think they'll ever see a life that's any different. They're not even telling their children in most countries that they have CF, because they don't want their children to know they're going to be dead in a few years. We go in and give a 3-month supply of enzymes to a clinic where we've never been before. And all of a sudden they have this weird experience of someone coming from across the world, this finger reaching out and saying, hey, I saw you. I heard you. I heard your voice, and I am going to physically respond. So the other thing we need, obviously, is funds. Piper's Angels is doing a phenomenal job, getting donations and just helping us and supporting us. We have some private people, but, I think it would be reasonable within a year to have $1 million. And I think, there's a number of different sources, but yes, any donations, if you have a passion for South America and, you really want to see change, I think we can make a huge difference down there. And it really does not require the enormous investment that I think people envision in light of the cost of modern day CF medication.
Kids who are young and starting the modulators, they have such a better outcome or projected outcome than us.
I would say within 10 years, the modulator availability will be such that the kids that we were able to keep alive through basic care will probably experience modulator.
That's good to hear.
We talk about full wins. We had one kid who we knew from India, and he did amazing things. He made his own therapy vest with massage. Wow. He worked for Qualcomm, and that he could actually have access to maybe come to America and have access to modulators. And because to come from India is you would not believe how short your life is, because you literally have no treatment. There's nothing to do there. There's no enzymes. There's nothing to do. He now is in Seattle. He's working for Qualcomm. He's not on oxygen. He has modulators. And then if people do have CF, we are very particular, but we need enzymes. There's many countries where we can ship enzymes. We need 2 therapy vests, Hillrom, the 105s and Respitex.
Yeah.
Also, if you want to do a big thing for very little money, $75 buys a brand new Aerobica. And we're training people on Aerobicas all over the world. An enzyme that's made by Amazon or made by Vital, sold at Amazon for $40. It has the same lipase units as Creon, all these other big pharmaceutical grade enzymes. I was the subject in my own experiment, but I was like, I did it. And I was like, no, this is amazing. One of the things that we really love it, if people want to partner with us, is one of those bottles of enzymes. It amazes me that we keep these projects going when I hear the adversity that we face. Like in Ecuador, they shut down the hospital. And one of our doctors actually moved her clinic at the risk of her own life into her kitchen.
Doctors are the best, I swear.
Guerrilla, like the gangs and the guerrillas actually shut down the hospital. And she kept it going during there was like a quasi-revolution. And we had people over, we have people that do things for these projects that honestly, they are my heroes.
Last question for you.
Okay.
What message do you want to share with listeners who are currently struggling with their own CF care?
I do have a lot of opinions about that. In fact, I was put into a hospital late at night because there was an emergency. And when I woke up, I was in the hospital with someone who was in the other bed. There was all these people coming in fully, with the full gear on, the full masks and everything. And they were, kind of like breaking it to this gentleman, this older gentleman, that he had MRSA. First, I made a big stink. I was like, you put me in an effing room with a guy with MRSA. I'm a CF patient. Are you freaking kidding me?
Yeah.
And I got mad at everyone. Yeah. And I called up the hospital ombudsman. I made very specific statements with respect to, filing a formal complaint with the ombudsman, filing a formal complaint. You have to just literally defend yourself. Well, the upshot of that visit is I got MRSA. I've had MRSA ever since. When I went back and tried to go through the formal process, which I gave up on, I decided, you know what? I have MRSA. By trying to take this too far, I'm going to lose my clinic. Mm-hmm. Because if we got into an adversarial relationship, I would be going to like New York City or something. Yeah. And I was like, there's nothing you can do. Sometimes just life is life, Right. And yes, I those are the kinds of instances that build up anger in us CF patients, right? Mm-hmm. Absolutely. But I encourage CF patients to do this. Like, there's times when you're not going to get good care, but try to be articulate and try to be as reasoned as you can be. And if you absolutely have to take something to the next level, and don't take everything to the next level, you just get to be labeled a troublemaker if you do that.
Exactly. You gotta be careful.
Take it to the next level, yeah, because ultimately we're in this relationship with our caregivers where there is this balance. Like, mm-hmm. We don't have ultimate say no matter what we do. I mean, even if you sue the hospital, doesn't mean your care is going to get better. So don't pull out the gun or the knife as quickly. I would not suggest that. A lot of people do. They get really angry. They flip out. I did that once. I've done that twice. But go through all the things. You have an ombudsman. You know that there's a medical board in your state. There's the CF Foundation that you can go to. There's a number of different avenues that I would suggest, but do it in the most sophisticated, or when I say sophisticated, do it in the most reasoned way possible. They'll give you way more respect.
Yeah, they'll listen.
You will listen. And the thing is, you're dependent on them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But then the other thing you have to realize is we're also ambassadors for the chronically ill.
That's true.
Like we're also like you're in this privileged position of being alive with a chronic illness. And like, if you could spread love and understanding and awareness, that would make your life more meaningful, but it would also bring understanding from other people. Yeah. We can't go through life just being angry at everyone that's healthy. One of the most powerful things that happened to me in my life was I was going through the super infection, and the doctor was telling me, Mark, I think you're just coming to the point where, this is probably not going to go away. And you're probably, this will kind of be the end. And, I mean, you could do, a transplant, but with your super infection, without sorting that out, it's not, that's not going to work. They're not going to accept you. So he said, this is kind of the end. And I looked at him and I was like, I told him, I said to him, I was crying, I had tears in my eyes. And I looked at him and I said, so much more I wanted to do. Right? I'm even choking up right now. he looked at me, and the most powerful thing anyone's ever said to me, he said, Mark, it's unfair. It's always been unfair. Your whole life has just been a series of unfair things. He's like, it's okay. And he just hugged me and cried, and he just said, at some point, we CF patients just need to say, it's unfair and get over it. It is unfair. There's nothing fair about it. There's nothing logically that will ever make it fair.
Wow, that is
But it's our lot.
cards we are dealt.
You know? Right. And it doesn't matter that it's fair or not.
It's just what it
Lead
is.
with love. Lead with love. Just lead with love.
That is a perfect place to end. But thank you so much for sharing your journey, your passion, your wisdom with us. Just to review, we learned about the disparities in cystic fibrosis care, how CF Best for Life is making a global impact, and how one person with CF turned their experience into advocacy and change. It was truly inspiring. If you want to support or need assistance from CF Best for Life, visit cfv4l.org. That's CFS, the number 4, life. You can donate therapy vests, equipment, or your time, and be sure to follow them on social media updates. And remember, being sick doesn't mean you can't be a chick or a sick dude who changes the world. Don't forget to like and subscribe to @JenCan'tBreathe.